with Chris Newell of the Witches Resistance. And Chris is a very, oh, there's the intro. Hello, I'm laughing because this is a new program for me, and wow, am I needing to learn. Okay, so my name is Holly Jordan, and this is Holly's Pandorian, and we are so excited today here because we have Chris Newell of the Witches Resistance, and welcome, Chris. I am so glad you're here, and you're a good sport.
Holly. It's been a journey just to get here this week, hasn't it?
It has. Oh my gosh. It has been a character moment after moment. Wow. So I have a list of things I'm going to put out for contact for you with your Instagram and your Twitter, which is now called Z, I guess, and Facebook and your email and all that wonderful stuff. You're a
I'm not on Twitter anymore. I gave that up. I'm on Facebook.
Did you? Okay. I will erase that from my list. You do a lot of cool stuff, Chris, and I want to talk about a lot of things with you that I think people need to know about you and your organization. That is awesome. I met Chris at the Oregon Ghost Conference in 2023, and we've gotten to know each other a little bit better. And Chris is not just a candle maker. He is an organizer, and he is an advocate for the earth in many ways and does a lot of cool stuff with that in mind. And so I would love for you to start, Chris, by helping people that are shy about the paranormal to talk about a paranormal experience that you've had and how it affected you, if you could do that.
Okay. And thank you for the kind words, Holly. I really appreciate it.
Well, I think you and your wife are awesome. So
about the paranormal, I mean, since I'm a witch, I understand that the paranormal's all around us all the time.
Right.
And so I'm going to describe an experience that I've described to you before because it was such a profound experience to me.
Yes.
And it also illustrates the point that the paranormal is around us all the time.
Yes.
So the year after Standing Rock ended, which is a protest in the Dakotas over a pipeline, our friend Candy Brings Plenty was leading the Woman's March here in Portland. And she asked me to bring my drum and come downtown and join the drums and march with them, which, I mean, I was really honored that she asked me to do that. And so we assembled down there at the square downtown by the Justice Center. There's a park there. It's been closed for a while now. But anyway, and we started an honor song on the march. And as we were walking down to the waterfront, you know, you hit that drum trance. Anyone who's ever been to drum circle or anything knows you just get in that state of mind.
Right.
And I started seeing spirits. And now I'm not a medium. It's not something that happens to me all the time like some people. And so
right.
it was a little like, did that just happen? Yeah, this is happening. They were literally coming up out of the streets, out of the buildings, and joining in the drums and the singers. On the waterfront, and we spread out. There's a park there at the south end, and we spread out along the river. And Candy was down next to the water with the Aztec dancers, and they were invoking all of the lost and forgotten spirits of Portland. And there's a bunch of those. And I started seeing more spirits come up out of the water. And they came up and they joined the crowd, the march. And as I look back over my shoulder, it was literally like person, spirit, person, spirit. If the people on that hill had any idea how many ghosts, how many spirits were there that day, I'm not sure. But anyway, it was very profound. It brought tears to my eyes.
Right. Clearly.
And at the end, she honored all the spirits for joining us, and she told them that it was okay that they could go, that they weren't forgotten. it still gets me. And
Yeah.
so many of them left up on the smoke of the incense she lit there. It was just the most awe-inspiring thing I've ever experienced.
And powerful, clearly, that it affected you so much.
And
And tell me what they look like a little bit, because you shared with that before, a little bit about what you
So
noticed about them.
when looking back on the hillside and seeing them then, there were all eras of dress, from when Portland was a wide spot on the river where people traded, on up through the modern times. But when they left, they turned into these beams of light. It was really amazing.
That's awesome. That really is.
Downtown feels better now than it used to, honestly.
Nice. That's awesome. But at any time, I have to ask this for the listeners, at any time did you feel afraid at what you were looking at?
Nah. I was awe-inspired.
Nice. That's awesome. That is awesome. Have you ever had anything like that since that was
Not on that
similar?
scale. I mean,
Okay.
there's a tavern called the Bayway in Halem, Oregon,
Okay.
that is haunted.
Okay.
I know this because I met the ghost. I firmly believe that ghost actually briefly possessed my wife and sat with me.
Interesting. That's interesting.
Her entire demeanor changed. I mean, you know, the way we carry our face is part of our personality.
Of course.
The way her face was changed. And he took a sip of beer because she was holding the beer.
Right.
And he made kind of a funny face at it. and he looked at the cigarette she was holding, and again, like, just made this face and set it down.
Okay.
And looked at me, and I told him to leave. Give me my wife back.
Yeah.
And he did.
Nice.
But
nice.
A little later, briefly that night, when we were standing in the driveway of the place we're staying at, looking up at this night sky, he came back. And all he had to say was, "The stars here aren't right. I'm lost."
Oh, wow. That's incredible.
I think he was a lost sailor. I don't know.
Could be. That's incredible, Chris. Wow. That's incredible.
A lot of sailors have met their ends on the Oregon coast.
Oh, clearly. Absolutely. I can attest to that. Absolutely, positively. That's
part of the Pacific for a reason.
Yeah. But I appreciate you sharing that additional story, only because it reminds me of a time when that happened to me. I was first learning to meditate with a friend, and their face changed, just like what you're describing. There was something physical that manifested right in front of me. And this was back in the 70s. And I remember being startled, but not afraid. Like, what is that? You know, just, yeah. And to be fair, I have to explain or caveat this. By that time, I had been aware of the paranormal and kind of exposed to it in larger ways because of my mediumship. And
right.
So it wasn't so shocking to me to see something out of the ordinary. But I remember talking to my friend, and I could still talk to them, but there was someone else there. There was someone else involved, and the voice changed a little bit, and reactions were very different. Facial expressions were different. And the person that I was talking to, my friend, didn't seem to catch on. They were kind of like sitting next to what was happening and not really affected by it. It was more like
no memory of it at all.
Yeah. And so they didn't realize what was happening at all. That's interesting. But I love that that subject matter because, and we'll have to talk about this more in depth another time, but there's a big difference between a possession and someone getting visited with
Right.
another soul. And so for people to understand, it doesn't mean something evil happened in any stretch of the imagination, because it wasn't. This was a
Right.
soul that was trying to
To go
talk.
back to it, so
Mm-hmm.
the bar was fairly busy. It was a Friday or Saturday night.
Sure.
There was one stool at the bar in the corner that nobody was sitting at.
Okay.
And that's where we first noticed the entity, ghost, being, whatever you want to
Okay.
call it. He was sitting on that stool.
Okay. And you guys
And whether
felt
people
and saw him?
realized- felt him more initially.
Okay. Okay. That's fair.
And I'd say other people, I'd say that's why people purposely avoided sitting there.
They felt something.
Honestly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Entirely likely. Sure. That's incredible. Wow. I love that. I love that. So when you had your experience, your initial thing that you shared, how did that change you? What did that do for you to go through that experience?
So that's really kind of deep, Holly. I mean, I have a lot of Indigenous friends. And
Yes, you
did
do.
you know that Indigenous women are 10 times more likely to go missing or be murdered than Caucasian women?
Unfortunately, yes, I do. It's awful.
And that really kind of drove that home. And it also really reinforces that, yes, there is another side. I still don't know what's over there, but there's
Sure.
definitely, and that the paranormal is all around us all the time.
Yes, agreed. I completely agree. I very much appreciate you phrasing it that way and explaining it, because for the purpose of people that aren't sure that there's anything afterlife, I have an aunt that passed, that right before she passed shared with one of her children that she was scared to die. And my cousin shared with her mom, I'm not, because her mom said, aren't you? And she said, no, not at all. I would go today. I'm not afraid at all. There are things about the afterlife that I feel like we've lost in our culture. And that's why I'm grateful for people like you that are involved in a spirituality that is far more open to natural things. Because to me, the afterlife is very natural and not frightening. And I believe that the afterlife is nothing to be feared and nothing to be hidden. I think that it's much better out in the open. And I love that people are able to talk about it more in this generation than in recent ones.
Well, not to stir the pot, but certain religions base the afterlife completely on punishment. So
correct, which is completely false.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
I don't
Yes.
see that. I saw lost souls ascending as beings of light. I mean,
yes. And that's beautiful. That's amazing. I love that. And that's something that I experience, and my husband's starting to really blossom with this. I do seances on weekends, and he was really overcome recently with one of them, and he started to cry. And I just looked at him and I said, it's amazing, isn't it? And he said, I can't express how much love I feel in this room right now. He goes, there isn't words for this. And he said, I'm not sure how I'm feeling, but it's amazing. And it was hard for him to verbalize it, as he was experiencing it. And I told him, I said, this is what I want people to feel and understand. There's nothing to fear when death. There is not.
My adopted mother, when she passed here at home. She was in hospice. She was an alcoholic.
Right.
She became an evil, hateful, just horrid person to be around.
Yeah, no fun.
The morning she died, I went in and I looked at her, and she had the most beautiful, relaxed smile on her face that
Wow.
I hadn't seen in decades.
Wow. That's awesome.
So, I mean, that gives me hope that, whatever's over there is good.
Yes. Yes. So I had a near death experience, only I actually did die for 7.5 minutes, almost 8 minutes. And I don't talk about it very much. I haven't. Um, but I will say this, there's absolutely nothing to be afraid of for anybody. And I mean that quite literally. Um, I genuinely wish I could brain transplant what I saw and felt to people, because more of it was feeling than seeing. There was a little bit of vision for me, but most of it was a feeling. And the
Right.
feeling was indescribable. There was a connection with every soul that was around me. I felt people I knew. I felt people I remembered from past lives. I felt animals. I felt camaraderie that was just intense. It was like everybody knew everybody's all the time. There
I,
was no physical separation. There was this bonding that was there, and there was absolutely no pain, absolutely no distress, no worry, no anything negative. Everything was all love, all the time.
I had a we're all connected experience.
Yeah.
Um, it was, I don't know, one of those early spring days like we get here where it's
Mhm.
warm, but it's still kind of chilly when the wind blows,
I
right?
love those days. Yep.
And I stopped at the overlook in Oregon City of Willamette Falls.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful plot.
And I was standing there looking out over at the falls and the sun glinting off the water, and I
Yeah.
could feel the wind ruffling the hair on my arm.
Sure.
And all of a suddenly, I zoomed out and I could see the web that connected everything. It was like my consciousness shot up into the upper atmosphere and I could see it all. And it was just amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, it was just one of those moments.
I love that. I had someone share with me recently about connective moments and leaving the body moments. Um, I do believe that our subconscious and conscious work in harmony most of the time, but I also believe that our subconscious is linked to the what I call the universal conscious, which is far greater knowledge and far greater openness to the universe. And
Mhm.
so I'm so glad for you that you had that experience, because I've had experiences like that too, and they change, for me, they change my patience for humanity. They change my outlook towards others that I wouldn't normally understand or have any knowledge of, and they just click. It just made this connection that normally it wouldn't quite fit, and it just fits. And it's like, oh, okay.
Looking back on it, that's one of the experiences that started shaping my belief in fighting for the planet.
Right.
Because as I was connected, there was also this nagging sense of wrongness. Now,
Yeah.
this might not make any sense, but it was down into my right
Okay.
because I was up and I could see it all, but something was wrong. And
Okay.
when I came back into myself and I looked down into my right, it was
Hmm.
the outflow of the paper mill that used to operate there in Oregon City.
Yeah, I get it. I
And
totally get it.
yeah,
So when I first moved to Camas with my husband, there's a big paper mill here also that's still functioning, but not at the capacity it once was. And I
mhm,
actually had a connection, and I'm not sure why they are where they are, but there's two Japanese royalty like dogs sitting on the hillside watching the mill.
hmm,
And what they shared with me is that they're there as seers and watchers to keep an eye on it, like they're watching the land. Now, why they resemble Japanese royalty, I'm not using the right
So
word.
some of the Salish Sea region, some of the indigenous art in
Hmm.
this area kind of resembles the Japanese too.
Interesting. Because yeah, these things were massive, and their spirit energy was huge, humongous. But what they showed me is that there's a pair of them, and very strong features, very strong bodies. I mean, really large energies. And
Mhm.
they were literally staring at the mill all the time. And they just kind of let me know, we're here for a reason. We're not going to bother you. Don't bother us. And I'm like, no problem. But they kind of just let me know they're there. And I thought, all right. Um, but it never ceases to amaze me how big the spirit world is. Because to me, for my life and my experience, it's so much bigger than the natural world that humans live in. It's gigantic. There's
Yes.
so much energy and so many souls and so
And
much.
from my perspective, a lot of those land spirits have gone to sleep.
You
The
think
the
so?
industrial the industrialization of the land has put a lot of the local ones to sleep. They're buried. It's time to wake them up.
Yeah. Well, they're
Yeah.
awake here in Camas. I know a couple of them are anyway. So that's awesome. Yeah.
There's a saying in the witch community: if you really want to cause problems, call up the river spirit. They like to get involved, and they're kind of chaotic.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, water's powerful. It truly
Mhm.
is. So let's talk about your candles a bit. Talk to me
Okay.
how that got started, and tell me, you've done
Sure.
it 30 some odd years a couple of times.
Right. So honestly, I first made candles with my great grandmother when I was like 8 or 9 years old, and she taught me how
Nice.
to melt down old wax stubs and make new candles.
Okay.
But that knowledge sat dormant for a long time, and
Sure.
I don't know. I was in a Michael's one day, I think, like, God, what am I, 57 now? Like 30 some odd years ago, and I got a candle
Okay.
making kit and some stuff, and I went home and I made some candles. I'm like, that's cool. I enjoyed that. Then I started working my witchcraft into the candles. And I also, make them and give them to friends, family as presents because
Right.
and that sort of developed throughout the year. I mean, if you get a Yule present from me, it's going to be a candle.
Gotcha.
And Yule's a solar festival, and I'm
Right.
spreading little flames throughout the world when I give
Nice.
candles out. There's a ritual behind it.
Yes.
But it's developed a lot over the years. And then in 2019, I learned that I started doing some like school bazaars, craft fairs, and things.
Okay.
And then I learned that one of my bucket list must meet people was going to be at Finnan near Vernonia.
Oh, yeah.
Janet Farrer.
Okay.
She and her husband wrote a little book called The Witch's Bible back in the early 1970s.
Right.
Right. And
Big
so
book.
the Witch's Resistance went to Sunfest that year. That was the idea came from a protest I was at in Tacoma with the Puyallup people. And they invited me up as a Wiccan priest, which is really kind of cool of them.
It is cool. You're right.
And I went around and I gave blessings to all the people who'd locked themselves down. There were a couple of people who were like, "Wait, you're a witch? No, I don't want anything to do with that." And I get that. I understand. But so while this protest is going on, I'm looking around. And I'm like, well, where are my other witches at? We say we revere the planet. We say we worship this earth.
Right.
Why am I the only one out here?
Excellent question.
And so, witch's place is in the resistance.
Yeah. Now, when you
And
say resistance, tell me what you mean by that.
I mean, if you're not standing up to defend our planet and resist the destruction of our mother to ensure that our grandchildren have a future, what are you doing?
Excellent.
I'm a little passionate about it.
Well, and as well you should be. Yeah, and I get it. I think it's beautiful.
I've been having some health problems and been keeping me away from protests lately, and that's kind of frustrating to me.
Sure.
But I've been spreading the message. It's like at Sunfest for the last 2 years, I give away little buttons with my message on them, and everyone who wears my button is spreading my message.
Nice. I love that. Well, and Sunfest is a pretty incredible festival as far as I understand it. I know a few people that have attended. Talk to me about these events and talk to me about your first protest. What was that about? I want people to understand what it is you're actually participating in.
Let's go through the protest first, because that
Okay,
brought
good.
me to being part of what I am now.
Okay, good.
So I wasn't able to go to Standing Rock. I had a job. I had some physical issues. Just wasn't in the cards. But I supported them online heavily.
Okay.
After Standing Rock, I learned that they were going to try and put a liquefied natural gas export facility here in Oregon in Jordan Cove at Coos Bay.
Yeah.
And that would have included like a 372-mile pipeline for Klamath Falls.
Huge.
And I thought, no, you're not going to do that in my state. That's just not going to happen.
Right.
Even if I have to chain myself to a freaking bulldozer, that shit's not going to happen.
Right.
And so I went down to Coos Bay for the first public comment meeting. And I stopped and I drove out to the Spit to see Jordan Cove where they proposed putting it.
Okay.
And when I got out of my car, I saw a pair of bald eagles. It's like they had a nest there.
Oh, wow.
Oh, hell no, you're not going to put in a big old industrial facility here.
Right.
And so then I went to that public comment meeting. That was my first interaction with being upset about something to drive to Coos Bay and put my voice on the record about it.
Right. Clearly.
And I met some paid protesters. This is funny because, a certain segment of our population always accuses protesters of being paid by George Soros. It's just the way that goes. Actually, the actual protesters are paid by their unions to show up at these events in mass,
right,
and give the put the pipeline through message.
Right.
The pipe fitters union here in Portland busts the same 20 people around all the public comment meetings.
Which is interesting because I don't know that everybody knows that. I think they think there's actual supporters and they don't realize, yes, they want jobs out of this, but there's a different motive going on here. It's not just what people think it is. Right. So thank you for elaborating on that.
But so that was eye-opening. I met some amazing people.
Right.
And I went to every public comment meeting, every protest. I worked magic against that damn thing. And you know what? I helped beat it. It's done. It's dead. It'll never happen.
Good. Now let's talk about why it was so bad. Can you share with me? You shared with me before, but share with me again.
So if it would have had, say, worst case scenario gone up in an explosion, it would have incinerated over a third of the city of Coos Bay.
Okay. First major.
Besides that, these facilities are notorious for leaking natural gas, which is methane, which over the 20-year cycle is 92 times worse of a greenhouse gas than CO2.
which is insane to think about. That is a
It,
crazy, crazy
it
number.
is.
And where did you get that number?
The science is available online. You can look it up yourself.
Very good.
That's
Very good.
and these energy companies try to greenwash natural gas as a green alternative to oil and coal, and it's not. It's
Not at
not at
all.
all. Their facilities leak. Yeah, fracking's bad.
Right.
I can go on and on about it.
Right.
They wanted to put a fracked gas to methanol refinery up your way in Kalama.
Right.
I went to the public comment meeting on that because we share a river and expressed how bad of an idea I felt it was.
Mm-hmm.
That I actually got threatened by union thugs there. That was kind of fun.
Oh my goodness. Tell us what happened.
Well, we weren't allowed to give applause or boos or anything. We're only allowed to thumb up and thumbs down the speakers.
Okay.
And the union guy came up and he gave his message, and well, I gave him the middle finger. It was nonverbal.
Right. You were in your
Next thing I
parameters.
know, I have these two huge union guys. I mean, I'm a big dude. These guys were huge. Come
Right.
and sit down right next to me and just start mean mugging me.
Yeah.
It's like,
You're like,
what?
whatever.
They're like, that was really disrespectful, man. So?
Yeah. It's called free speech. Hello.
and they're like, there's parking lot out there. Like, you got to leave sometime. I looked at him and I looked back behind him and I said, you see all those Native Americans sitting behind you 30, 40 deep? Those are all my friends. Meet you in the parking lot.
Yeah.
They didn't
Good Lord. Yeah. They assumed you were by yourself, clearly.
Clearly.
Yes. So share with us again, share with everybody again your story about when you first went up after seeing a post about a protest.
I went to Tacoma.
Yes. Talk about that, please.
Okay. So one night I see this young man named Dakota Case on my Facebook asking for people to come to Tacoma to stand with the Puyallup people against this illegal natural gas facility.
Right.
Tacoma's only an hour and a half away. I grabbed my drum and I went.
Right.
Rhonda thought I was crazy, I'm sure. But so they had someone meet me off site and like vet me, right? And they took me to the protest site. And I'm walking up and Dakota's there. And he's my size. He's a big dude.
Right.
Covered in tattoos. Kind of scary. And he sees me and he's like, who are you? Why are you here? Like,
right.
I saw you on Facebook, man. I thought I'd drive up from Portland and give you a hand. You drove up from Portland because you saw me on Facebook asking for help.
Yep.
I'm like, yeah, man. And he threw me in the biggest damn hug. And his mom was there smudging me off. She's like,
of course,
that driving energy off of you.
Right, right.
And they've been my family ever since.
That is so cool. I love that story.
We just got back from tribal canoe journey to Muckleshoot.
Oh, I love that. I saw the images from that. It was incredible. That was beautiful. So can you explain for the listeners what that's for and what that's about?
Sure. It started in, I want to say, 1989 when the city of Seattle asked for some traditional canoes to celebrate their centennial or bicentennial.
Okay.
And out of all the indigenous tribes in the area, they managed to scrape up 8 or 10 canoes.
That's it?
That's
wow.
It.
Wow.
You got to remember, it was illegal to practice any indigenous traditional anything until 1978.
Oh, that makes me sick to my stomach. Wow.
Right. And so
not cool.
From then, it's grown until this year. They had 120 canoes land at Alki Beach in Seattle.
Wow. That's awesome. The
Yeah.
aerial view, somebody had taken aerial footage of it. It was breathtaking. It was so beautiful to see all those canoes. I just loved it.
So
That was amazing.
next year, a small tribe in Canada, Ahusat, I probably said that wrong. It's on the west coast of Vancouver Island, about 3 miles north of, or 3 hours north of
Okay.
Vancouver, British Columbia, is hosting.
Oh, nice.
This year, there was a family that paddled almost 1,500 miles from Alaska to come.
Oh my goodness. That's
Yeah.
incredible. How cool is that? I love that.
Warm Springs and the
Right?
Portland All Nations canoe family paddled down the Columbia out to the open ocean and up and
Wow.
around. Yeah.
Wow. That's some work.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
It's a very spiritual thing for them, and since they allow outsiders to come and not participate,
Right.
observe,
Yes.
it's really kind of nice. And
Yes.
the host tribe, they fed us lunch, they fed us dinner every single day.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Elders, which I think I qualify. I've got the gray hair.
I hide mine. I have some, but it's in there.
We had special like air conditioned room with big screen TVs and overstuffed chairs if we didn't want to sit out on the bleachers.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really neat.
It was a
I
good
love
time.
that. I love that. So tell me about in the Witch's Resistance, you have a really neat, interesting story about you getting a group of teenagers or college kids together and some training that you and Rhonda did. Can you share about that?
Well, that would be the group's called the Green Circle. That's what we call our coven.
Okay.
But in Tennessee, so I moved to Tennessee for a job at the end of 1999. We literally moved into our house in Tennessee on New Year's Eve of the millennia.
Okay.
But I met some people through Yahoo message boards,
Oh, wow.
back in the early internet
Oh, my.
days.
Wow.
And we went to a meeting with the East Tennessee State University Earth Spirituality Group.
Okay.
And somehow we ended up being their non-faculty advisors. Probably because we had a house with some land that they could come have meetings at. But,
right.
So every semester we'd pick a book like The Witch's Bible or Buckland's Big Blue Book or Green Witchcraft. I could go on. And we'd work through the book and we'd culminate with the ritual out of the book.
Okay.
And I never thought that much about it, but then I was explaining that to Gavin Bone at Sunfest, who's kind of well known in the community. And he's like,
okay,
that's bloody brilliant. You probably know more about Wicca than I do. Did you just say that to me?
Yeah, that's kind of a bold statement. I'm surprised by that.
I'm still surprised by that.
Right. Yeah. Goodness.
And maybe the different flavors. But
yeah.
From that we formed a core group of 13, which was a really nice experience.
I think so.
I'm not
from what you've shared about it. Yeah.
A church group because it's not the same thing.
Right. So for people listening that are not familiar with being a witch, because I want to open the door, not just for the paranormal conversation, but I want to open the door a little wider and give people an understanding in a new way that's not the TV show Bewitched and is not the Wicked Witch of the West
Right.
from the Wizard of Oz, but there's this giant gaping hole of information that has been
Right.
erased and or torn and twisted into something that's completely unrecognizable from the truth.
See,
So
I love and hate the movie The Craft
yeah, I get it.
because it brought a lot of people into witchcraft, but it was so inaccurate in the things it portrayed. But anyway.
And misleading. Yes, it was very misleading.
Yes. So let's start with Wiccan, being a
Okay.
following
Okay.
the religion of Wicca. Because witchcraft and Wicca are two completely separate things.
Explain.
So Wicca is a religion that was started in the mid-50s by a man named Gerald Gardner.
Okay.
And that doesn't make it any less relevant. I was Wiccan for many years.
Right.
Wicca teaches you to practice witchcraft,
Okay.
but so do many other traditions. You got your voodoo and your heathenism and on, you know, and then there's traditional like Italian witchcraft, Stregaria. So
Norse witchcraft. There's tons. There's just
there
a bunch. Yes.
Yes.
Which I
And
don't think people understand that, because I do believe that I have to interject really fast. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
It's okay.
There's so much, I don't know if this is the right word. There's like hyperbolic mindsetting of this is what it is. And it's for the Pilgrim Puritan mindset that this is
Absolutely.
all that it is. It fits in this little circular box and that's all that it, and it's not. And so I want to just, yeah, I'm glad you're talking about this.
To the beginnings of the Christian church in the Roman Empire.
Yes.
I mean, even the word pagan, which is simply from the Latin word paganini, which means country folk.
Yep.
Okay. And it was originally just used to make fun of the country bumpkins, and they still believe in that other stuff.
Right.
And you know, I don't know. Heathens. That word originally meant someone who lived on the heath.
Right.
Again, a country bumpkin, an easy target for the sophisticated city folk.
Right.
I'm not sure I'm explaining that well, but
that's okay. You're
like,
doing good.
I can't even speak for all Wiccans because there's so many different flavors of Wicca,
right. Right.
You know, generally we all revere the earth,
right,
and generally we all hold a male and a female divinity sacred,
right.
Now there's
so
go ahead.
So in this spirituality,
mm-hmm.
there is prayer.
Yes, meditation, prayer, if you want to
yes.
call it that.
And there is a oneness with the earth. That there's more of an involvement in natural things, natural lifestyles, and in an environment that is conducive to being friendly with everything around you in a loving and kind way.
The Wiccan Rede simply states, and at harm none, do as you will. That's a pretty simple way to live. Don't harm
right.
things. Don't be a douchebag.
Right. Which to me makes a lot of sense. Instead of a list of rules that have to explain what being bad is, it should come naturally to most people what being bad is, just to not harm anybody else. Don't harm anybody.
Religion to keep you on a leash from being bad, you're a psychopath.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. But
yeah. I actually have a Wiccan friend and we were talking about the lottery one afternoon. And she said, I would love to win the lottery. She said, as long as no harm came to anyone for me to get it. And I went, I love that.
Yeah.
Because
Even
I
like,
don't think we think like that enough.
Even this symbol I wear. Can
Yes.
you see that? There it is.
Yes.
Right.
That's awesome.
So each of the points, you got earth, air, fire, water, and spirit.
Yes.
And then the circle of life that binds all things.
Right.
That's what the pentacle means to me.
Right.
It's not satanic. It's not even upside down.
Right.
In fact, there's some European traditions where there's second degree witches wear their pentacles upside down to denote their rank.
Now explain what that means upside down. That's what people tend to think of as a witch symbol, period. Can you explain that?
So Satanists do use the upside down pentacle. I'm probably going to get some disagreement for this, but to be a Satanist, you have to be a Christian at heart because, I mean, he's one of theirs. He's not one of mine.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
And so the Christian church conflated Pan long ago with the devil.
Right.
In the upside down pentacle, you'll see it represented as the goat's head occasionally for Baphomet.
Correct. Right.
So there is some darker representation there, but I know some worshipers of Baphomet. They're nice people.
Right.
I don't know anyone, Satanists included, who sacrifice any animals, people, none of that. Doesn't happen. Now, I understand that that's part of voodoo. I guess. I don't know. And if that's the case, well, who am I to judge?
Right. Right. I do have a couple of friends that grew up in voodoo type situations. And these are people that understand it, grew up around it, and that was part of their life. And that was just part of dealing with social situations. It was not considered evil. It was not considered bad. And I have to wonder, and I'm curious sometimes, in all faith, we have leadership and we have rules, and then we have reactions. Whenever life isn't going the way we feel good about, we have some way of dealing with it. We either pray, meditate, or ask for help from our God or gods, as it were.
Right.
And so in dealing with all of these changes and things that people look at, they're so separate. Well, they're really not. There's not that much difference. We all have things that we struggle with. And even in voodoo, if you struggle with love, if you struggle with health, if you struggle with finances, whatever it is, you go to your religious contract connection, and that's where you ask for help for a higher power above you or around you to help you deal with life, because life is hard. And I love that we have the chance to talk publicly about witchcraft and witches, and that there's a vast array, because
the burned at stake for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Honestly, I have had periods of time in my life where, after growing up Catholic, and I know some wonderful Catholic people I love dearly, and I understand that faith and that understanding, but I also understand what I live, and what I live doesn't jive with that. And that's not to say anything bad about anybody here. It's literally just that in my life, being a medium and being a psychic, I don't fit in the church. I don't go well with the beliefs there. They will allow me to have a gift of knowledge or a word of knowledge here and there, as long as it goes along with the guidebook. But honestly, in my lifetime, I've had more embracing from people that are witches in just letting me be who I am, and understanding that I've never been a yucky person. I've always been a loving, kind soul, and I will remain that way. And what gifts I have, I was born with. I've struggled with them and fought with them and hid them away and was afraid of them because I didn't understand them. And the witch community actually, over and over again in my life, has been incredibly instrumental to help me, A, not be scared to death of what's happening, B, help me understand what's happening, and C, not force anything down my neck ever. I have never, ever had any coercion from a witch, not once in my life, ever. I've had kindness and loving understanding and compassion and open for communication, which is what I needed. I needed to be able to talk about what was happening, and they gave me that.
I've had religious friends. By religious, I mean Abrahamically religious.
Right.
Reach out to me with some, like, hey, this is going on in my life, and could you do something to help me with that? And it's kind of funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I spent time in and out of church growing up, and even while I was raising my kids. And there were times I know that my gifts were incredibly instrumental for a lot of people. And some people were open to it and some people weren't. But it's weird that this, I don't know, I guess I'm treading on thin water here, but I have to say it. For people that call themselves a Christian, I understand that. And I've had my own experiences with Jesus that I totally believe in him. I do not believe that there's things in the Christian faith that are worth continuing. I feel like there needs to be a separation from what was set upon the culture and what actually is. Because the Jesus that I know wants nothing to do with the hate and separation that has happened. It is not what he's about. It is not what he's like. And that's, people are going to see, it's just a matter of time. They're going to see there's a lot of love and a lot of understanding and compassion that was stripped out of what is now the Bible.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sad about that because it's not what it should be, I think. But yeah, well, that's the most public I've said anything like that on ever.
And that's okay. There's a lot of Reformed Catholics in my friend circle.
Oh, I'm sure.
In my community. Sure. It's just because honestly, Catholics are goddess worshipers. They just don't call it.
I know. That's what's so amazing. I'm glad you said that because Mother Mary, hello.
Right. And in other cultures, witchcraft is much less stigmatized. Like in Mexico,
right?
You got a problem? You go see the curandero or the bruja.
Right. Right.
Somebody will fix you up.
Right.
And that's just the way it is.
Right.
And
let's talk about that. And what do people go there for? Not to kill someone, not to destroy someone. They go there because they have problems with their love relationship or they have none. They have an illness they need help with. They have a financial stress or they're worried about somebody. I know so many people that they just need support. They just need to be listened to. They're worried about a family member. There's all kinds of things, normal, everyday things that this basis is all about. It's not about destroying animals and all these creepy things that our movie culture would like us to believe.
Right. I lived in Tennessee for 5 years. I know what those people think about me. It's all right.
Yeah. They've made it very clear, I'm sure.
They'd be shocked if they had any idea how many of us were around them.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. And I think I shared this with you before. I have a friend that's from that area that is psychic that actually had a burning cross stuck in her yard for telling a coworker that she had cancer. She helped save this woman's life. She got treatment and got in remission. And this woman made the mistake of telling her husband, man, I owe so-and-so my life. She saved my life. She told me I had cancer and I did. And her husband said, how did she know? And she said, because she's a psychic. And this gentleman who got, which is ironic, his wife was saved. His wife was healed due to science and medicine. And his wife worked in the medical industry, mind you. Okay, so he understood what happened to her and what she went through. Right. He went after this psychic in such a level. He told all the neighbors she was a black witch and that she was practicing evil magic, and they threw food and garbage at her children. Okay. They threw food and garbage at their house. They put a burning cross in the yard to the point that she had to move her family to another state. It's wicked.
It is. It absolutely is. It's the puritanical streak.
Yep.
There was a video going around of this guy, Greg Locke. He's an alleged Christian pastor. Anyway.
Okay.
Beating a Barbie dream house to pieces with a baseball bat wrapped in Bibles.
Okay.
There's a lot to unpack there, isn't there?
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
That's just kind of a metaphor for everything that's going on in that side of the religious discussion right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Evangelicals scare me.
Yeah. Okay, so for someone who's religiously confused or religiously curious, they feel spiritual, maybe they've had a good experience with church, maybe not, maybe they've never been to church, whatever the case may be. If they're curious about being a witch or the Wiccan faith, how do they begin? Where do they look? What should they check out? What would you recommend?
Well, let's see. In most cities, you can find an occult/pagan bookshop.
Okay.
That's a good place to start.
All right.
In the more liberal cities, like here in Portland, we have Columbia Willamette Pagan Pride Day, which is sponsored by Other Worlds of Wonder.
Which you are a part of.
Which I'm a part of. I just got elected vice president, actually.
Did you? Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. That's September 10th at Oaks Park here in Portland. Come out and meet the community. We're going to have a bunch of vendors, rituals, workshops. Find an event and go to it. Meet some people. Or if you're a book reader, pick up a copy of Guide for the Solitary Practitioner by
excuse me.
Where'd his name go? Scott Cunningham.
Okay. Okay.
That was my first book. Or Raymond Buckland's The Complete Book of Witchcraft.
Okay.
Those are good starter books. Green Witchcraft by Anne Mora.
Excuse me.
See that it's allergies. Not scary and frightening.
So tell us about Other Worlds of Wonder. What is that?
Other Worlds of Wonder is a Portland area pagan nonprofit that's been around for the better part of 20 to 30 years. We were originally formed with the mission to get and develop some land for the pagan community.
Excuse me. Okay.
Which we helped the people who own Finnan make that happen. So then we transitioned to sort of a community service organization. We sponsor Pagan Pride, which I mentioned coming up. We do Sunfest in June out at Finnan, which is a camping festival. It's a family-friendly event. It's a good time. If you want to expose your entire family to paganism, that's the event to go to. It's an amazing community. I heard a first-timer last year.
Okay.
Because their kid wanted to run off and be part of the feral pack of children that runs around at Sunfest.
Okay.
Ask if they'd be safe. And she looked at him and she said, "Everyone's witches here. Of course you're safe."
Right. Yeah.
No.
But in the culture we live in, I get why she asked, just because of the culture that we live in right now, which is sad.
Yeah.
That absolutely. She needs to even ask. Yeah.
Being the vendor coordinator, it's like out there at Finnan, you want to leave your booth unattended for a couple hours and go to an event or a seminar, everything will be fine. Nobody's going to steal from you here. You know, it's an amazing community.
So what kinds of things are at this sort of an event?
Well, I mean, community to start with, but like Sunfest, every day is scheduled out. There's workshops every day. You can choose which ones you want to go to. And last year we had a copper embossing workshop and a couple other things that were really cool. Different rituals. There's usually a main ritual on Saturday night. It's a good time. Oh, and vendors, amazing vendors.
So lots of crafts and handmade items, that type of thing.
Yes, I have met the most amazingly artistic people.
That's awesome.
It is.
And so when you are teaching rituals or someone is teaching rituals, what are they about? Give me an example of a couple of them.
So last Sunfest, the main ritual was honoring the Magnamator, the Great Mother, and asking for her protection for her people.
Okay.
Cybele. That's spelled Sybele, but I guess it's pronounced Cybele.
Okay.
And we were each to sacrifice something to her that was near and dear to us. I chose for a lock of my hair because my hair is near and dear to me.
Okay.
Those, some people left little offerings they made and things. It's hard to describe a ritual to someone who's never been to a ritual. I'm sorry.
Okay. That's okay. That's okay. Well, because that's part of the curiosity, because a lot of people have been indoctrinated with church rituals and church behavior, and they know what to expect. And so when they think about something else, where's the building? Where's the pews? Where's the preacher? You know what I mean? I mean, that whole thing is what conjures in someone's mind of this is what it's like.
Physical recoil.
Yes, I did. I saw that.
we went to the UU Church, Universal Unitarian Church. We went to one of their events in Tennessee. That's a place you can go to meet pagan community if you're in a place where things like that are frowned upon.
Okay.
But anyway, we went to an event there, and it was a full-on pagan event, but it was in a building under a roof, and my feet weren't bare and in the grass, and I didn't enjoy it at all.
Yeah, I get that.
It just felt weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I grew up going to church. I mean, I literally learned to read out of the Bible sitting in my great-grandmother's lap.
Right.
Yeah, that's not my home. Hasn't been for a very long time.
No, I get that. I do understand that. Definitely. I definitely understand that. So as far as the Witches Resistance goes, if someone's interested in participating in that, how do they do that?
Give us a follow on social media at Witches Resistance. That's WITCHES Resistance. We'll get you my Facebook, my Instagram, and my Threads account. Okay. And if you want to see what I sell, that's witchesresistance.com.
Okay.
And
so there's different.
As soon as my feet are better, I can start planning some protests.
Okay. That sounds awesome. But that's a good way for people just to keep in touch with what you're working on and different events going on and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. I'm always posting about the events I'm vending at.
Good. That's awesome.
Some of those are good time. Like we just did a Ren Fair for the last 2 weekends in July. That was awesome.
And what is that?
Canterbury Renaissance Fair.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was
those are fun.
Really dusty, but an amazingly good time.
Yeah. I love Renaissance fairs. I love the food. I love the crafts. I love the clothing. I love the environment. It's awesome.
And I mean, I couldn't get out much because we were really busy, but since everybody came by my booth, I didn't have to,
Well,
I got
nice.
to see all the costumes.
That's awesome.
Well,
Yeah, that's a very neat experience. For anyone that hasn't been to a Renaissance fair, go once in your life, for heaven's sakes. Just go. I mean,
right. You don't even
there
have to dress up. Just
you
go.
don't have to dress up. That's, I think, one of the first misconceptions about a Renaissance fair. You do not have to go. Just like a psychic fair. You don't have to get a reading when you go, people. Just go for
Mm-mm.
the atmosphere. You're outside, you're around other people, and it's not an electronic event. It's a non-electronic event where you go and just breathe. You're around other people, you see things, you talk to people, you eat if you want. If you don't, you don't. You sit
You'll get
under
a
a
turkey
tree.
leg.
You get to breathe. And I
Yep.
genuinely feel like that's, especially people with families, go out and get some fresh air, especially after COVID. We need the exposure. We need to be around each other and just be humans.
Yes.
That's awesome. So if you could tell someone who's had a paranormal experience and they are scared to talk about it, what would you say to them?
Don't be afraid to talk about it. Chances are somebody else has had that experience too, or something very similar to it.
Exactly.
Unless you're in one of those family where your parents are going to beat you to death with the Bible, then by all means don't talk to them about it. But otherwise, talk to somebody about it.
Yeah, there's plenty of people that you can talk to. You just need to look and don't give up.
Right.
It doesn't mean you're weird. It doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. It means that you actually are very blessed that you have an exposure to something that is magical to me. To me, the paranormal's magic, living magic.
Okay. I will disagree, because magic by my definition is the raising and direction of energy. So
Yeah. And that's, to me, that's what the paranormal is. It's energy in different forms. I love it. Well, I have had such a good time talking with you again. This has been wonderful.
it's
And
been great.
we'll have to talk some more. But I appreciate all of your sharing and all of your stories, Chris, always.
Thank you.
And I'll look forward to chatting with you again and talking about more of the event stuff as it gets near.
Excellent. And
That would be awesome.
thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you.